The most active level of racing in Japan is what they call Sunday racing. This requires only a basic race license, and most entrants are using street-driven cars. Even so, this club meeting at the Sendai Highland Circuit had plenty of very quick GTRs in attendance. This is a brand new R34 M-Spec Newer, probably the most desirable of all GTRs. This isn't a GTR, but the 260RS Stagia uses all GTR running gear in a wagon body. Though there were some big singles, most cars were using twin low mount turbos. A good example of a club racing GTR is this R32. Though it is heavily modified, it has been built on a more modest budget than some. The bottom end of the engine is still standard, but it makes plenty of power with Nismo LM type turbos and a tuned computer with Mines airflow meters. The owner, Hidehiko Hanyu, is not too concerned about detailing, but do-it-yourself tricks like the trim around the intercooler and the vent behind the oil cooler all make a difference on the circuit. The brakes are Brembos from the V-Spec version, with 17 by 9 inch SSR wheels carrying Bridgestone semi-slick tyres. Underneath there are no special suspension links, just a set of coilover shocks and some basic alignment tweaks. Inside, the trim has been stripped out with a basic roll cage and rear tower brace. To preserve the engine, Hidehiko changes at around 7,000 RPM. We also spotted this control module fitted to the Atessa system. To see how well this all works on the track, we stuck our in-car camera in the back for a timed lap. Hidehiko has run faster, but a 2:08 is still quick, given that the track is still slightly wet. A far more serious entry is this R34 GTR, owned by Hiroyuki Kanazawa, one of the official HKS test drivers. For a start, it has much larger brakes, with Ferrari F50 Brembo calipers at the front. Behind the Nismo front bar there is a larger intercooler, with all custom piping in the engine bay. There are many special bolt-on parts, like the split fire coils, HKS fuel rail and ARC radiator and header tank system. This car also has Nismo LM turbos, supporting around 600 horsepower, with HKS actuators fitted for better boost control. Tayan's new electronically adjustable coilovers have also been fitted, with an awesome titanium tower brace. The exhaust is also all titanium, with dual oil coolers mounted under the rear end for the transmission and differential. The standard trim is mostly intact, apart from the Recaro race seat. This car uses a Hollinger 6-speed sequential transmission, which is a major advantage on the circuit. The Blitz boost controller also has a high boost switch mounted on the steering wheel. Watch as we take a ride, and you'll see Hiroyuki holding the high boost switch on straight sections of the track. Amazing 7 seconds faster than the R32 and still well short of the car's best time. HKS is the largest and most famous performance parts maker in Japan. Their main factory is located in Shin-Fuji, right in front of Mount Fuji itself, though it is usually hidden by clouds. Their main warehouse is also here, stocking thousands of parts from exhaust systems to electronics. In the next building, we saw this new Nissan 350Z being dyno tested. HKS have developed two new exhaust systems for this car. One of them is a semi-race type system, but this one is designed to be fairly quiet. It is made from polished stainless steel, which is thin-walled to provide a substantial weight saving over the standard system. In another dyno cell, an FCON S computer was being tuned on this R34 GTR. This car's package is a typical street type upgrade, using only simple bolt-on parts like the racing suction kit air cleaners and entry-level GTSS turbos. These are quite an affordable bolt-on option for any GTR. A new turbo upgrade kit is this GT-RS system for the Impreza WRX. This turbo can support up to 400 horsepower, but will still fit under the standard intercooler system. We wanted to see the HKS S15 drift car, but unfortunately it had been pulled apart for further development. This is one of the leading drift cars in the D1 Drift Competition Series. Next to the R&D department is the exhaust factory, which is one of the biggest in Japan. HKS also make exhaust systems for some smaller aftermarket companies. These are entry-level steel systems, but the most popular new product is a stainless muffler with a titanium tip. HKS also offer mufflers with a carbon fibre barrel. The piping is mostly welded by hand, but to get the faultless welds seen on HKS stainless mufflers, a robotic welder is used. The jigs for all of the different exhaust manifolds and piping are stored in this huge rack, accessed by an automated forklift. Not something you'll see in most exhaust shops. The HKS intercooler series is also very popular in Japan, with systems for most models. But what interests us the most is the HKS turbo range. One of the most popular new products is the 2835 Pro S, using a new style of internal wastegate. It also comes in a larger 3037 version, which we discussed with the R&D manager.
今回これをこういう風にしたのは、アクチュエータータイプのターボというのはどうしてもこういう風に開いた時にバイパスのガスがこっちから逃げていくんですけど、従来のTD だとか HTI だとかっていうウエストゲート一体式のターボハウジングの場合だと、どうしてもバイパスのガスを逃げる通路っていうのが狭くなってきて、結局それが十分なバイパス量を確保できないということで、こっち側の駅マニ側の圧力が高まって、結果としてそれがエンジンの方のポンプ損失につながってパワーが出ないということがあったもんですから、それをここの容量を確保することで十分なバイパス量をキープしましょうという狙いで、こういう形にしてあります。
このタイムはまず JZ とタービン2号のために作ったんですか？
そうですね、まあ結果として 1J とか RB25 クラスが一番28のターボを使うには一番 いいエンジンでしょうということでそれに合わせて作ってみました。
Another important new model is the GTRS, which supports even more power than the popular GT2540.
250と GTRS は、一番の違いはコンプレッサーのホイールを、より風量のあるものに交換してありまして、キャパシティをアップさせている感じですね。
コンプレッサー。
そうですね。
タービンは同じ？
タービンは全く同じです。
The GT2540 is rated at 350 horsepower. The GTRS supports 50 horsepower more, but HKS also claim better response.
大きさがここら辺と同じで76ミリだったんですけど、RS は、2835と同じで71ミリにちっちゃくしたんですよ。でも羽のデザインとかが違うもんですから、馬力風量的にも、大きくはなってるんですけども、大きさがちっちゃくなってるということでレスポンスも良くなってるっていうことですね。
The biggest HKS turbo is the T51R, which has recently been upgraded to a roller bearing type. This is available in both SPL and Kai versions.
SPL と Kai のバージョンはどう違いますか？
コンプレッサーのホイールの大きさが違いまして、SPL の方は、約100パイ、100ミリのコンプレッサーホイールなんですけども、で、ホースパワー的には、1000馬力対応で、回の方は、コンプレッサーのホイールが、94で、馬力的には、850から900馬力ぐらいということで、そこが違いですね。
ブーストはどこからどこまでいいですか？
基本的には、だいたい1キロ前後から、一番効率がいいのは 1.67 なんですけれども、 1.6 とか7ぐらいなんですけど、2キロかけてもそんなに効率が低下しない、ダウンしないっていうような羽を、設定してますので、使用上は2キロでもそれ以上でも特には問題はないですね。
HKS have demonstrated the performance of their turbos by building the fastest drag cars in Japan. This 180SX has been around for several years, but it is still within a tenth of a second of the new Supra V8 twin turbo. This car uses a GTR engine producing over 1200 horsepower using twin GT3240 turbos and a specially designed intercooler. Interestingly, it is left-hand drive using an air-shifted transmission. The rear end is completely changed with just a thin Lexan cover over the massive wheel tubs, which are needed to fit these huge Goodyear slicks. The suspension is a typical 4-link drag setup with custom brakes and Mark Williams axles. Though it has already run a 7.1 second pass, HKS is still pushing to get it into the sixes. The quickest GTR in the world is still the HKS R33, holding the record at 7.6 seconds. It uses quite a similar engine setup, but of course this car is four-wheel drive, so it has to use suspension based on the original Skyline setup. Once again, the transmission is air-shifted using the HKS Rokusoku gearbox. As we mentioned in HBI V2, however, the most important part of the setup is this Hello Kitty seat pad. HKS racing extends well beyond the drag strip, with entries in the Japanese touring car and open wheeler classes. These are just a few of their retired cars. At one time, HKS even targeted the Formula 1 scene, producing this 3.5 litre V12 engine called the 300E. This produced in excess of 650 horsepower and could rev to over 13,500 RPM, but sadly it never quite made it onto the track. Other HKS race engines include this BMW 4-cylinder with unusual top feed inlet ports. Another special head was developed for this Mitsubishi engine, which was used in American off-road racing. For our first workshop this issue, let's take a look at Car Shop K-Style. Located near the Ibisu drift circuit in the Fukushima prefecture, K-Style concentrate mostly on drift cars, with the occasional strange show car like this 180SX converted into a ute. The most successful drift car right now is this S15 Silvia, competing in the D1 series. It uses a Truss TD06 turbo, producing comfortably over 400 horsepower when needed. The interior is very stylish, with Bride brick seats and matching red accessories. In the D1 series, it is up against some tough competition, like the Arpex RX7 and the HKS S15. Even in practice, they get fairly competitive. The trouble with a delay like this is other cars catch up to you. The car is so low that sometimes you'll hear the bodywork scraping. We can't show you the proper D1 competition, so let's move on to another track. Nikko Circuit is only a couple of hours from downtown Tokyo. Built in the remains of an old quarry, it is one of the most popular drift circuits in Japan. Over 60 cars entered the event. More than half of them were turbocharged Nissans like the 180SX, Silvia and Skyline. Though this was only a minor league meeting, many of the D1 drivers were here just to practice. We got a ride to the track with Miwa Shinji, who competes in D1 with an AE86 Levin. For practice days he uses his silver AE86, which has a near standard engine, but the same suspension setup as his competition car. Another D1 driver doing a few laps was Ken Sato, the owner of drift workshop Kenworks. Apparently he's not so worried about damaging his best car. On a wet track, having more power is actually a disadvantage. There's not much left of the front spoiler, but this doesn't seem to bother him too much. The biggest hassle for drivers at this level is getting stuck behind slower cars. plenty more bumpers where that came from. This S13 Silvia actually belongs to an American who works at one of the US military bases near Tokyo. Quite a few expats like Mike are getting into the local drift scene. His car is a pretty typical S13 drift car, with a bunch of bolt-on engine mods and very low drift suspension. His Japanese competitors have an unfair advantage over him, however, as many start drifting before they even have a license.
中級でしょ？中級？はい。だよね。オッケー。はいはい。
US military training.
Yeah.
I've got to have to know drift.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put the taxpayers' money to good use, right?
Top Fuel is one of the largest workshops in Japan. They're located about an hour from the Suzuka GP circuit in the Mie Prefecture. Don't take the name literally, because all of the drag cars they build are based on street cars. They produce a lot of their own parts, including exhaust systems and the power chamber inlet systems for naturally aspirated cars. They are also famous for making turbo kits. A huge variety of turbos are on display in the showroom. And the workshop is just as impressive. There's an advanced wheel alignment machine and a fully insulated dyno room with the latest Bosch 4-wheel drive dyno. Their current project is a JZA80 Supra being built for street drag racing. That is, racing at a drag strip with street legal tyres. They have already built a Supra that runs 10s, but this one is expected to run 9s. It makes well over 1,000 horsepower, whereas the last car produced around 850. As you would expect, it has a big inlet plenum and a huge T88H 34D turbo. The interior is still in the process of being stripped, but big Brembo brakes have already been fitted. Even though the nearest drag strip is 3 hours away at Central Circuit, the car park is full of drag cars. Last time we visited Central Circuit, we saw one of their customers running a street drag 180SX. With a T88 turbo, it makes huge horsepower, but has trouble getting off the line. Still, 11.2 isn't too shabby. The company president, Yasuji Hirano, also has a pair of fully rebuilt 240Zs, imported from America.
トップフュールのイメージは、
はい
ちょっとホンダチューナーの
はい
でしょ、
はい
トップフュールのオリジナルパーツも、
はい
ホンダの方が多いでしょ、
はいはいはいは
なぜですか？
い別にいろんな車種全部やってますけども、たまたまお客さんで、ホンダの車にターボつけたいねっていうお客さんが見えて、それでその時どこもまだターボキットっていうのがなかった時ですけどね。でじゃあターボなんとかつけようかっていうことでターボをつけて、そうすると割と意外にうまくいったんですよ、それが。でこれ結構面白いねっていうことで、今までその FF でそんなことやってるところってほとんどなかったし、じゃあこれ面白そうやねって言ってやりだしたのがきっかけで、別にその商売の戦略的に計画があってとかそういう難しいことじゃなくって、たまたまお客さんがホンダ車でターボつけたいんだけど、じゃあやってみようかな、じゃあ結果 OK で、これ面白いじゃんって言って、じゃあこれもうちょっとやってみようか、それからどんどんこう膨らんでいったっていう感じですね。はい。
The latest in a long line of Honda VTEC turbo kits is this DC5 Integra, which is using the new Truss T517Z turbo and another variation on the power chamber inlet pipe with a trussed filter.
今はね、やっぱりサーキットの分は EK9 のシビック、これもターボです。はい。
それはつ
くばで走ってます。59秒3、今コースレコードなんで FF のしばらく59秒3をクリアする FF っていうのはなかなか作りにくいと思うんで、しばらくは1位の座を守れると思うんですけどね。
The EK Civic is an out-and-out race machine with a large KKK turbo and external wastegate bolted onto its VTEC engine. This is tuned for nearly 400 horsepower, which is tough to handle in a front-wheel drive circuit car. A very large oil cooler is an essential part of the system, as high compression, boost and high revs make life very hard for the engine. The inside is completely gutted, with hundreds of extra spot welds and a complex roll cage improving chassis rigidity. GTR-style Brembo brakes also hide behind the lightweight Advan RG rims. Any car that can break 1 minute at Tsukuba is worthy of respect.
トップフュールのオリジナルパーツは、ゼロ線という、
はい、ゼロ線、はい。
それはゼロ線の意味は何ですか？
割と気楽につけたんですけど、一番最初は私が思ってるの04は好きですけども、ストリートで一番速い車はやっぱり0、1000メーターが一番速くなければ 04だけでもやっぱり 400m っていうとね、ちょっと車の性能を 100% 発揮できない部分があるんで、1000m っていうとその車の最高速もほとんど出ちゃうと思うんで、一番やっぱり車として性能をアピールできるのは01000m、それが一番車の性能をアピールできるんじゃないかなっていうのと、日本の第二次世界大戦の01000という飛行機の運動性能の良さっていうのもちょっと2つ引っ掛けたような感じで、あとロゴ語呂合わせって分かりますか？語呂合わせが良かって01000っていう名前に。
Probably the most famous top fuel project ever is this late model Honda CRX, which was the star of the Tokyo Auto Salon a couple of years back. Instead of front wheel drive, the engine has been moved behind the seats to create a mid-engine rear drive layout. On top of this, it's turbocharged with a water-to-air intercooler system. Underneath, you can see the new chassis rails needed to mount the engine in the back, along with the twin exhaust system and unique oil cooler location.
来年のショーで、
はい、
どの車？
鋭い質問やね。今もう考えとるんですけどね、考えとる時間もやらねえかんねやけども、何をしようと。車はみんな新しい Z とかソアラとかってやってるみたいなんで、うちはもう車で出すんじゃなくて、車もインテグラの DC5 のインテグラとか、その辺は出そうと思ってるんですけども、うちのオリジナルのパーツの新製品がいろいろ出てくるんで、そっちの方のパーツをアピールしようかなと来年は思ってます。
Garage saw us specialise in the new Nissan March. No, not really. Actually, they will turn their hand to almost anything, though they are best known for their GTRs. When we visited, all of their project cars were under wraps or in pieces, but there was still plenty to see. Up on the hoist is their next drag GTR, still a long way from completion. The customers' cars are serious too though, like this JZA70 Supra running a T88 turbo. The office may be small, but it's filled to the brim with parts, including engine parts, so you don't need to wait for your order to come in, even if you need a HKS GTR crank and pistons. The car that's closest to being finished is this S14 street drag car. It is one of very few 9-second Silvias in Japan, which is more impressive when you see it still uses an SR20 engine. Apart from the intercooler, it still seems quite normal on the outside, but the engine is something else. It uses a Truss TD0620G turbo. And another one. Yep, a twin turbo setup that will support 900 horsepower on a GTR, strapped to the side of an SR20. Saurus claims 750 horsepower on the 2.2 litre SR, so the oil cooler is mounted front and centre. The injectors are 1000cc per minute HKS items with a matching rail. The Greddy manifold has modified injector bosses to suit with a 90mm infinity throttle. At the back of the engine there's a shock absorber to save the engine mounts, while underneath there's another interesting feature. This big windage tray is essential for oil control on a very high revving engine. while TN coilovers provide plenty of tunability for maximising traction. The two turbos share a 60mm external wastegate. The rear end uses Nitto tyres, of course, with Cusco upper links and all solid bushes in the cradle. The Quaife gearbox from Trust is the next major upgrade, which will hopefully get the car deeper into the nines. A completely different style of car was parked outside. This NXX has been set up for weekend circuit racing, concentrating on the chassis setup rather than outright power. This includes the brake package, with huge discs and 4-piston AP calipers front and rear. The wheels are 18s at the front and 19s at the rear. The bonnet has a big vent with a carbon fibre vane to draw more air through the radiator, while an adjustable rear wing gives the best balance between drag and downforce. A lip spoiler underneath also reduces drag. The rest of the body kit is all functional, but subtle enough not to spoil the look of the car. That also goes for the carbon fibre undertray and twin exhausts. The engine has relatively mild modifications, like the air filter, headers and a retuned computer. Trust oil coolers are also flush mounted in each of the side air intakes. Though it only makes 350 horsepower, the car has lapped Tsukuba in 1 minute and 2 seconds in the hands of a pro driver. Chassis improvements like the TN coilovers and the ARC titanium braces play a big part. The interior shows a similar approach, with racing parts like the stack instrument set, detachable Nardi wheel, Recaro race seats and Takata harnesses still not spoiling its appearance. There's also a brake bias adjuster beside the seat. Altogether, a very desirable alternative to any Ferrari. We've mentioned Tsukuba a lot already. Well, here we are, checking out a historic race meeting. Older Japanese performance cars are still a big part of the racing scene, with almost all of the classics represented at this event. A slightly newer sideshow is the fabled AE86 Toyota, known as the Hachiroku. These are still hugely popular, with over 30 entrants in this one-make race. The light rear-wheel drive chassis makes them a lot of fun on a race circuit, but they can be tricky in the wet. Among the older classics was this original PGC 10 Skyline GTR, built in 1969. This car is a living legend in Japan, featuring the twin-cam S20 six-cylinder with 4 valves per cylinder and triple Solex carburetors. Other than the Skyline GTRs, the only car to use the S20 was a special edition of the 240Z, known as the 432. This one is beautifully presented, with classic 70s stripes. In this class, all cars have to use the standard brake disc size, but caliper upgrades are allowed. The really tough cars are in the modified class, like this 240Z with wide flares and a carbon fibre bonnet. The doors are fiberglass shells and the interior is utterly stripped. 17-inch wheels with slick tyres cover R33 GTR Brembo brakes. The side exit exhaust also saves weight. Even the panel around the taillights is carbon fibre. There was one more class racing at Tsukuba that day, but their lap times were not exactly thrilling. You may remember car make T&E from our very first video. This time we visited their main performance workshop, where their latest drift cars were under development. The new Sora appeared at the Tokyo Auto Salon last year, showcasing their new carbon fibre doors. The interior sports plenty of carbon fibre too, with an LCD panel replacing the old instruments. T&E were one of the first workshops to test the new HKS 3037 Pro S Turbo, which happily supports over 400 horsepower on the 1JZ VVTi engine. HKS twin power ignition is used too, with immaculate show-style polishing on all of the engine components. The Vertex body kit has been modified somewhat, with their own T0 brake upgrade at the front. When we spotted the car at Ebisu, a new carbon fibre console had also been fitted, as if the car was short on carbon fibre. The wheels had also been updated to the latest Volks and the doors are painted over. but he's still doing well in the championship. Another T&E car in the D1 series belongs to their chief mechanic. This S15 was the first car to use the new Vertex Ridge wide body kit. This gives plenty of clearance for the big bulk rims from Ray's Engineering. The extra width is most noticeable at the rear, where the guards extend past the tail light. Unfortunately, the owner was shy about the state of the engine bay, but it was neat inside, with the ever popular Bride brick seats. I guess it wasn't his day either. Nope, definitely not. Mind you, he wasn't the only one having trouble. Down the road from the Arpex factory near Yokohama, you'll find AP Engineering, their #1 workshop. Most of the Arpex demo cars are built and tuned here. They also dyno test new parts, like this Super Bomber muffler. Yeah, anyway. Our favourite car was this Arpex S15 Circuit Racer, which showcases all of their best hardware for the SR20 DET. The only external changes to the body are the vented bonnet, rear wing and minor changes to the Nismo front bumper. But inside you can see how the body shell is tied to the roll cage for maximum rigidity. The data logging system is also very beneficial in circuit racing. XL refers to the Pro Tuning software for the Power FC, which is only available to the best workshops. Most other engine specs are listed on the door, starting with the Isamu RX6B turbo kit and 2.2 litre bottom end kit. N1 racing dampers are also an essential part of the car, along with the SPL intake manifold and the GTR drag type intercooler with its very intricate handmade plumbing. Looking under the rear, the coolest feature is this new R95 titanium exhaust system. So, now we've seen everyone else, let's see how our own project is going. You may remember the original tyres were preventing us from enjoying the new white line suspension parts. The old Yokohamas were well worn and not really designed for hard track work, so it was time for an upgrade. We chose a set of Falcon Azenis HTI1&2 tyres, measuring 265/35 at the back, mounted on 18x9-inch racing Hart wheels. For a start, you can see how much better we can get the power down now. There is also less steering needed to hold the car's line through a corner. The bottom line, a full 2 seconds faster on this circuit. The gain is even better on a quarter mile. .2 off the 60-foot time and nearly a second off the ET. The next step up for street drag is a set of Nittos. These 245/50 16-inch tyres were imported from Japan. Our first chance to test them was at Heathcote Park. Nittos definitely benefit from a big warm-up and relatively low tyre pressure. Another 2/10 off the 60-foot time, and another 3/10 from the ET. It's amazing how much you can gain just by changing tyres.